go on the road 2 weeks ago to Miami, and they've got a beautiful pink stadium. What's the field called?
It's where I think where the Miami Hurricanes play. Is that true? I'm not sure, but it's a temporary stadium. They're actually built. It looks like a gorgeous, beautiful stadium. Yeah. And for those who are looking on the podcast, we have a nice flyover coming in. Way to go, Mikey Dobbs. Mm-hmm. You got to take credit for that. But it's a temporary stadium. They're actually building a new stadium to replace that nice new stadium. So I don't know what that's about. Only in Miami they build 2 stadiums. So for the price of one.
What was your take on the game in general against Miami? We I think had like 66% possession in that game, 20 shots on goal. Just only one went in.
Yeah, I mean, it starts the run of us dominating possession. Pineda saying, we were unlucky. That kind of thing should lead to a win every time. But as I think we're going to get into in some detail, there's a lot of mistakes that you don't win games that way. Yeah. Possession doesn't equal winning. And, we'll get to a quote from Pineda after the second game. But I don't know, Mikey Dobbs. I think that we're a long way from good.
Yeah, and it's just not clicking. There's still the issues with the way we're trying to use like a Brooks Lennon going up the line. That is, we talked about in the last podcast. I think it's the root of some of our issues. I'm kind of down on Brooks Lennon in general right now in terms of him being in that right back position. I'd rather see Ronald Hernandez with this setup.
With Lennon in front of him or Lennon not on the field?
Not on the field.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you've got, in front, hopefully you've got Josetu and Sosa, right, in the middle. And then on the right, you're going to have Araujo as a forward.
Yeah,
so
the inverted winger.
So, give that guy the ball. Brooks Lennon doesn't need to be up there.
Yeah, that's for sure. You certainly don't need Araujo and Brooks Lennon in the same place. Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say on a positive note is that in both games that we'll talk about, our back four is a little further up the field. We were winning a few more balls at midfield. That's why we had a lot of possession. And that kind of thing, giving the ball to Mama more often. There wasn't obviously Mama in the Miami game because Araujo wasn't back, at least not starting yet. But giving the ball to them more often in the attacking third is going to lead to good things.
So one of the things in the Miami game that drove me nuts, since in the last podcast we talked about VAR, is they still can't get it right. And that, that what should have been a penalty kick for Brooks Lennon going down in the box towards the end of the game, I just... In today's day and age where any sort of contact in the box is given a penalty, like that's the precedent that's been set, how could they not have called that a PK? Doesn't mean I think it should be a PK in Mike Dobbs' ideal world. I'd rather go back 20 years and a little bit of blood and then you deserve a PK, but that's not how it works anymore. Brooks Lennon definitely had enough contact on his shin to trip him.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter that the guy's not good at falling down gracefully. You have to give that penalty. And the fact is also, let me see if I can. Oh no, my computer is running out of juice here. You keep talking while I plug it in.
So what I would say is that Brooks Lennon makes a meal of it in that he gets the contact, and instead of just trying to keep going, and he wouldn't have been able to stay up, but instead of trying to do that, he does this swan dive, 2 feet up in the air, gonna dramatize it, and it's not good. I mean, so that's the bad side of it, and that's I think why the referee reacted and didn't call it. On the positive side, or I happen to agree with you completely, it should have been a penalty. Anytime you get in the box and you're behind the defender, basically goal side of the defender, so he's behind you trailing, then, if there's a challenge and it's not a clean challenge, that's a penalty. when you're a referee, you have to be looking for not just the outcome, because it's really, really hard to judge in these minute moments, but you have to look at how the play came about. Is the attacker ahead of the defender? Is he goal-sided? Did the defender challenge from a good spot or a weak spot? And in this case, Brooks Lennon is past the defender. He challenges from a bad spot. He clearly catches the shin, and in my opinion, it's a penalty.
1,000%. And the only people that I was going to bring up on the show that would possibly disagree with me are the people that toe the line for the MLS. It's Andrew Wiebe and those guys. And so sure enough, I went to their replay of extra time or whatever they call it.
Yep.
And I'm like, I know these guys are just going to toe the line of this referee making the right decision, because how could this not be considered a PK? And sure enough, these guys literally reviewed a PK that was just as soft 5 seconds before. 5 seconds before, and we're like, that's enough contact, clearly a penalty. And then you slow it down to 60 frames per second. You see the guy kicking his shin from behind and his arm up on his shoulder. And, I just can't.
Yeah, one thing you got to criticize those guys for is how often are they really objecting to the call, right? So they seem to, most of the time, they agree with the referee. And, it's interesting. It goes to actually the nature of the MLS league, right? If you go to the Premier League, if you go to Serie A, if you go to the any of the top divisions, right? The people who are largely commenting and on the game, right? They don't associate with the league at all. You don't have anybody from the FA who's a presenter on the television, right? MLS, because of its nature and its history, a lot of the people who cover the league and actually present and in fairness, do a nice job of talking about the league and everything else, they're actually paid by the league, right? Yeah. So it kind of creates a conflict of interest. And I'm not gonna trash those guys, because I think some of the things they do are pretty nice, but it creates a situation where you're not going to see them disagree with the penalties that often, right? You're not going to have them be like, this was a bad call, that was a bad call, whatever, because they're paid by the league, right?
Yeah.